and welcome to Magic by Design. We are late for a very important date with Disney's 13th animated feature, Alice in Wonderland, so we haven't a moment to waste, but if you're new to the show, we are aiming to watch and review every Disney animated feature film. Each week we break down a movie from the Disney canon in an attempt to discover the secrets behind the magic. But before we visit the surreal world of Wonderland, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Ken, and I am joined as always by my brother slash co-host, or co-host slash brother, whichever way you want to put it, Gar, how are you?
How much drugs did Lewis Carroll do?
A lot. Apparently, like C.S. Lewis, Tolkien, and the rest of them, they had like a big opiate problem.
But like, Lewis Carroll was like a mathematician, wasn't he?
I think so. Well, Tolkien was a teacher as well.
Like, Lewis Carroll was a pen name for Charles Dodson because he was actually a mathematician and he wanted to be taken seriously in his field. So he used the pen name Lewis Carroll so he could write his bizarre drug-fueled fantasy children's book and get away with it.
Yeah, that's the thing I was like, for kids?
Yeah.
Strange book. I was going to ask you this later, but I'm going to ask you up front to embarrass you. Have you read the book?
Yes. I read the book before. I didn't read it this week, but I have read Alice in Wonderland. Wow. Do I remember it? Not really, but I read it.
Is it long?
No, it's not particularly long. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, by the way. They changed the title from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland to Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, it's commonly shortened. Did you read the sequel, Through the Looking Glass?
I did not. The Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There. There's a subtitle.
Well, at least you know that. We'll give you a pass for this week, Gar. It's not an A. We'll give you like a B-.
Yeah, I've read the book before, so it counts. I have read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland cover to cover, though I do think I skipped most of the poems.
Well, like, that's basically the entire thing.
Well, no, there's like they included one of the poems in the film as well, the clam one.
Yeah, the poems are like the whole point of it, isn't it?
No, I don't care. I just want the plot. Give me the story mechanics.
Okay, fair enough. Speaking of Alice in Wonderland, Gar, what are your initial thoughts on this film?
By the way, Ken tried to show me up at the start, being like, have you read Alice in Wonderland? I'm like, damn right I have, Ken.
In fairness, based on your recent track record, I was right to possibly assume that you hadn't read it.
Well, Cinderella was technically a folk tale, so once I've heard the folk tale of Cinderella, technically I've heard the source material.
That's very sketchy.
Suck it, Ken.
Okay.
It was passed via word of mouth for decades before written. My initial impressions of this film. Do I like it? No?
Yeah.
It's a weird one in that it's an iconic film, but sitting down for the 75 minutes or so to watch it, I'm like, is this good? And my answer leans toward no. It's interesting and weird in a way that a lot of Disney films aren't. Like, there's a vein of weirdness, and we'll probably go into the weirdness more as we go through.
Oh, don't worry, Gar, it's there.
But the book is super weird. And the film, in fairness, is also super weird. They don't, like, smooth out the weirdness. They leave all the weirdness in there. And it becomes, like, a weird narrative mess of just stuff happening that's weird. And it's the kind of film... Disney would not make this film in 2020. Like, not...
Too much of a risk.
Not a hope would Disney make a weird, off-the-wall film like this in 2020. They'd focus, test it to death, and it'd be like, oh, people don't know what's happening. Alice isn't relatable enough. There's not a villain until the last 15 minutes of the film. Like, all of that wouldn't fly in the year of our Lord 2020. But... yeah, it's interesting more than it's good, I think. Like, did I enjoy it? Kinda.
Yeah. I didn't have much memory of this film. I might have seen it when I was younger, so I was watching it with pretty fresh eyes. Much like the films of the package era, for me it was a mixed bag. There was stuff I liked, stuff I didn't like so much. I came away with the same feelings. Like, did I like it? I don't know. Did I hate it? No. I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it.
No, it's not bad. I'd never say it's bad.
But would I watch it again? I don't know.
No, probably not.
Podcast over.
There we go. Done. Nicole, take us away.
This film was in development for a very long time at Disney. We've talked about this in previous podcasts. Walt had an affinity for the books, having read them as a child. They first attempted to adapt it unsuccessfully in the 1930s.
This is a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
Adapting Alice in Wonderland. Fair enough, you could never do it in live action in the 50s. And they barely did it in live action in the mid-2010s, whenever that film came out. 2010. Was it? That was 2010 on the button. There we go. Yeah, they barely got that into... But, like, you could not do this film in live action. You couldn't do it well in live action anyway. So, like, you could only do this in animation. But, like, imagine trying to adapt this unwieldy mess of a book for mainstream US audiences as an animated feature right after the war as well. Right after, like, you hit Cinderella, you're kind of back, but then you're like, all right, Alice in Wonderland, how the hell did we make this and make it work? And the answer is they probably kind of didn't, but it's too weird to make into a cohesive piece of film.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because originally, as we said in probably our first podcast, because we mentioned this was intended to be the first feature, it was envisioned as a live-action animation film, so a mixture of the two. starring Mary Pickford.
I could see them doing the both, because like having a live action Alice, but even then the shrinking and the growing and all that fun stuff, that would be really hard to do in live action.
I don't think the technology existed. Or even if it did, it would have been very primitive.
Or very expensive as well.
So Disney pursued this until the late 40s when he decided to make it a solely animated feature. The film, Gar, was considered a disappointment upon its release.
Financially or critically?
Both.
Oh.
Leading to Disney writing off a loss in excess of $1 million.
It's interesting that even films that are critically written off and financially unsuccessful at the time are, like, they become iconic. And there's actually probably not many beats from this film that are actually iconic in the same way like Dumbo's ears or Pinocchio's nose is. Like, what do you think is the iconic beat from this film?
I think the Queen of Hearts and the depiction of Alice herself. And to be fair,
Alice as a character design, I think, is the most iconic thing from this film.
And to be fair, I was about to make the point, that character design is not unique, so she's been depicted more or less like that in other ways, and in the original story itself, which was illustrated. But yeah, I think those are the two things that stand out for me. Critics at the time pointed out the film's slow and uneven pace, and Carroll fans did not care for the adaptation, saying that it was not true to the source material.
Oh, I'm shocked that the nerds didn't like that they changed the book a little.
Accusing Disney of Americanizing the story.
Did they?
Yeah, apparently so.
How so?
I don't know, because...
as I said, I have read the book. I don't remember the book.
I think it's quite British. Like, to me, it was quite British, but possibly through an American lens.
Yeah, and it's like, it's interesting, because like Alice in Wonderland has been adapted a ton. There was a whole season of Once Upon a Time about Alice in Wonderland, and then a subsequent spin-off, Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, which I think lasted 2 seasons before it was cancelled.
I never even heard about that.
Yeah, it didn't do well. I think it was the gimmick where they were doing like mid-season replacements, so they do the first half of Once Upon a Time, then air Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, and then after Christmas they come back with the second half of Once Upon a Time, but it did not do particularly well. The same thing that they did with Agent Carter and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Like a television event or something like that.
Yeah, so that it would fill the gap in the schedule over the Christmas period with something that's related to the thing that's missing. So the theory is people who want Once Upon a Time will watch that show over Christmas. Didn't really happen. Lasted 2 years. Cancelled. Same thing happened with Agent Carter. So there you go. Not a good strategy there, ABC.
Yeah, I forgot that was a show until you mentioned it right there.
Agent Carter was a good show.
I didn't watch it. I haven't watched S.H.I.E.L.D. either, though. So
it's on Disney Plus. You can watch it on Disney Plus.
I'll get around to it.
All right.
Disney relegated Alice in Wonderland to a television special.
I find every like 7th time I say Alice in Wonderland,
yeah,
I for some reason say it Alice in Wonderland, as if Wonderland is like Greenland.
It's like a place, or Sunderland. Or...
Yeah, so if that comes out if you're frustrated by the fact that every like 7th time I pronounce it differently, I'm sorry.
So Alice in Wonderland featured as the entire first episode of his TV series Disneyland. It was very successful on television, especially in the psychedelic era of
Drugs.
the 1970s.
Woo!
Leading it to be re-released in theaters in 1974, and it proved massively successful at that time.
That's a weird phenomenon in a modern context, because at the moment there's very old films in the cinema. They're the Harry Potter films are in the cinemas, the Batman films are in the cinemas,
Lord of the Rings,
which I might go see, are in the cinemas.
Even the Iron Giant came out.
Iron Giant came out, Star Wars Episode 5 is out, but there's a reason that's happening right now. We're in the middle of a global pandemic and nobody wants to release anything new. But the idea that in the 1940s they're just like, let's just re-release Alice in Wonderland and it'll be a bigger success than it was originally is just wild to consider.
We've talked about all these films, and like these are seen as iconic and even, pillars of pop culture and big pieces of animated and film history. But in their times, they weren't well received. Like a lot of them, you talk about Bambi, we talk about, Alice in Wonderland. All these films that you think are fantastic in a modern context, they weren't appreciated in their time.
What year was it re-released?
1974.
So that was 23 years after the original release.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like Men in Black being released now and being hugely successful. Or to use the Disney example, 97 was Hercules, wasn't it?
Yeah, which wasn't too well received in its time.
So it's the equivalent of Disney re-releasing Hercules now and it being more successful than it was originally. Which, again, seems completely ridiculous and unfathomable these days.
Maybe it points to the fact that it was maybe ahead of its time, or hadn't found the right audience yet, and it was released in the right time in the 70s. As he said, the psychedelic, the surreal elements were more well appreciated. The film became even more successful through merchandising and subsequent home video releases. Obviously films took a long time to reach home video.
The remake made an ungodly amount of money. The live action remake,
over $1 billion.
It's absurd. I remember when they made the sequel to the remake, and we're like
2016. So they really didn't capitalize on the first one.
But even then, you were like, was that first film that successful to warrant a sequel? It's like, oh yes, it was.
And I couldn't tell you what happened in it. I don't
I
remember any of
it.
And I remember being in the theater going, no, I'm not enjoying this.
It's a Tim Burton film, and it's the most Tim Burton film you'll ever see. Like it's Alice in Wonderland fully through the looking glass that is Tim Burton.
Yeah, and he seems to apply that style to everything. It doesn't always work.
Yeah, so like Paranorman. Did he direct Paranorman? He was probably involved in.
He's involved in Paranorman.
Yeah, but like that, it works. Alice in Wonderland, not so much.
Yeah, and I don't think you can't have gothic and darker elements because the book contains that. You can confirm, Gar.
Yes,
but
yes, sure, I can confirm.
I don't know. It's a very specific style, and I think it's kind of outstayed its welcome on screen.
Do you know what my bigger reference for Alice in Wonderland is than the book or either of those films?
Is it Kingdom Hearts?
It's Kingdom Hearts, Ken, because there's a level in Kingdom Hearts 1 based on Wonderland, and you see all the world, like all the Queen's trial place and the woods and the room with the big and the small thing. All that's in Kingdom Hearts. I'm like, look at all this stuff in Kingdom Hearts. I'm like, yeah, I recognize this from Kingdom Hearts, not from the film. The hallway leading down. I don't recognize any of that from the film. I recognize it from Kingdom Hearts.
That's your entry point.
I did talk about last week. Cinderella also features prominently in Kingdom Hearts. In Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, you collect all the materials for the dress and fun stuff like that. There you go.
So Garrett has been introduced to all of these classics through the medium of video games.
Yes, thank you Square Enix and Disney for saving video games and Disney history for me.
So while the film was critically panned upon its initial release, it is since regarded as one of the greatest animated classics.
No.
Notably, one of the biggest cult classics in the medium of animation, as well as the best film adaptation of Alice.
How many others have there been?
There's been a lot. If you look at the history of adaptations, there's been a lot stretching to before this film and afterwards. I've only seen 2, so I can't really judge.
Or the remake, the live action remake, and the original.
Yes, that's it.
So I don't know of any of the other ones.
No.
And obviously the Once Upon a Time plot in Kingdom Hearts.
Wikipedia's word for it, I guess. I mean, my vast research. I mean, moving on to the animation of this film, the one thing that struck me from the beginning was the opening title cards. Very charming.
Oh God. Oh, sorry, we're going back to Alice in Wonderland. There's so many adaptations of Alice in Wonderland. First adapted 1903 with a silent film, 1910, 1915, 1931, 1933, 1933, 1933, 1944, 1946, 1948, 1949, 1949, 1950, 1951, 51, 54, 55, 60, 62, 65, 66, 66, 72, 72, 76. Oh God, would people let it go? 83, 85.
Well, around that time it would have become free to adapt. So
88, 95, 99. Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, and that's not counting all the comic strips and stuff. Good God, that's a good 30 to 40 adaptations in the space of 100 years. You're right, Ken. They adapted it to death.
Thank you. At least you could have trusted me, when I said I've done my research and you didn't have to look it up, but I'm okay. It's fine.
It is in the public domain. We could do an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland if we want.
Maybe as a special episode.
Or we can do it as part of this podcast. It's like, I'm Alice. Oh, I've fallen asleep. My nightmares are all creepy, and I've created a world that is following the rules that I have designed, but I still don't understand them.
I'm the Cheshire Cat. I'm a dick.
Hey, the Cheshire Cat helps her, kinda.
Okay, we'll get on to that.
The Cheshire Cat is basically the hero of the film.
I don't know if I agree with you on that one. As I was saying, Gar, before you Googled me again.
Yeah, sorry.
The opening title cards, very nice.
More effort than usual.
Mostly there's kind of like a generic background. This looked like concept art turned into opening title cards. So I enjoyed that. Also, the juxtaposition between the vivid, lifelike depiction of...
Look at you with your leaving cert comparative studies word.
Oh, God. I mean, you can't let me get one sentence.
But seriously, nobody uses the word juxtaposition unless they're like, I'm doing critical analysis of something. The juxtaposition of these two things.
What are we doing right now?
Yeah, but I think it's funny.
Okay.
It's like, go back to your studying. What did you do?
Poetry?
Or the comparative study, the 3 texts.
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Because I did Billy Elliot, Dancing at Lunasa, and I don't remember what the third one was. Lear stands by itself, doesn't it? So there's a third one. You do a longer text, and then you do the comparative study, which is like more contemporary stuff. And I don't remember the rest, but yeah. You don't remember what you did for your comparative study?
No. Well, I have an idea, but
what film? You don't remember what film?
Cinema Party. So
there you go.
Which was re-released in Irish cinemas. As well.
We tied it all together. We brought it full circle. World-class podcasting. Can continue.
Can I say juxtaposition now?
Yes, you can say juxtaposition now that I have called attention to it, and you will feel slightly self-conscious about it.
I noted the juxtaposition between the vivid, lifelike depiction of the real world, almost like a watercolor, versus the surreal, stylized treatment of Wonderland.
Basically, the Disney, in their like weird, off-the-wall kind of abstract fantasy thing that they put into all of their films, is like, how about we make a whole film like that?
Not just like a 3-minute segment from one of the package films. I found the offbeat imagination of the world appealing. You get the sense that the animators had a lot of fun animating the surreal sequences and characters. You really get the sense that they let their imaginations run wild.
But based on the fact that they put these kind of things into every film, it would make you think this is really what they wanted to do. Like, they've been building up to this for 13 animated features to finally do like just the full, vivid, off-the-wall, the world's going crazy, psychedelic, weird crap. It's a whole film of it. People get big, people get small, things get big, things get small. The letters come out of his mouth.
Reappear, things don't work as they should.
It's the animator's dream. It's the Dumbo pink elephant sequence turned into a full film.
For 90 minutes. Gary, I think you said this last night, I wanted to note this. Disney loves simple, dopey characters, and this film is chock full of them. It's basically the entire film.
The Mad Hatter, there's Dopey, there was
the March Hare.
The March Hare, there was another one in Wind in the Willows. They love their dopey characters. It's such a trope for them, for a character to have, and they all have the same face. That's the reason I always notice it. They always have like the same dopey face on them.
At the time, that was considered appeal. Now, maybe offensive.
Slightly, yeah. Just on the wrong side there, Disney.
Yeah, but this is very much a film for those characters.
Because it's the character that you're meant to laugh at. You know, look how stupid he is. It's not well written, or it's not good jokes, it's not funny, it's just like, laugh at him. Go on, laugh at him.
Laugh at their mental illness or disability.
Yeah, it's like, and these days it's but they did love them in those films.
The only other thing I noted really about the animation I wanted to call out was the card guards, or the card knights, stacking and changing formation and marching. I find that very satisfying.
Very Paper Mario.
Yes. Okay, you're segueing Paper Mario in.
Of course, it's a great game.
We've both been playing it for the last week. It's an amazing game.
But yeah,
maybe not amazing. It's fun. It's cute. It's comfort food for gaming, I think.
It's a very pleasant game. But yeah, there's a bunch of times when like Goombas are like, Goombas, stack up. And they stack up together as like a stack of 5 Goombas. And a bunch of cards did that in this film. It's very reminiscent. Also, those cards are in Kingdom Hearts. You fight them. It's a boss
circle
battle.
Again, Gar. Everything comes back to Kingdom Hearts.
Everything does come back to Kingdom Hearts. We all come back to Kingdom Hearts in the end.
Moving on to the story and the themes, Gar. As you said, this is based on the seminal children's book Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, real name Charles Dodgson. It's a prominent example of the literary nonsense genre.
Yes, who doesn't love a bit of literary nonsense? Children, nothing makes sense. That's fine.
Literary nonsense is described as literature that balances elements that make sense with some that do not, with the effect of subverting language conventions or logical reasoning. The effect of nonsense is often caused by the excess of meaning rather than the lack of it. Its humour is derived from its nonsensical nature rather than the wit of the joke or the punchline.
So basically, like that kind of hits on the core of my problem with this film, because like weirdness for weirdness sake doesn't work.
No. At least not for a feature film.
Not for something that's meant to be compelling for 75 minutes. Because like it's Twin Peaks, but Twin Peaks was such a specific kind of weird that it worked. Whereas this is throwing all the weird at the wall. It's not weird with whimsy. It's not weird with direction. It's not like a specific kind of weird. To quote the wonderful Judge John Hodgman, specificity is the soul of all narrative. So if you don't have a specificity to the weirdness, and like there's a better, I'm going to rewrite Alice in Wonderland. I'm going to rewriting would be a completely different thing these days. Rewrite a seminal work of fiction, but like the way this should have worked is that the weird things that should have happened should have been reflective of something that Alice experienced. So like a thing in the world, she's seeing it through a different lens. It's not just rabbits are suddenly crazy rabbits running away from evil queens. And like this entire work of fiction should have, everything that she saw in Wonderland should have been a reflection through her lens of what she experienced in the real world. Then you have a specific kind of weirdness, a narrative weirdness.
That's what I thought it was going to be. I thought, like, anything that was in this world, which is ostensibly her own creation, was some kind of analogy to something that she experienced in her life, as you said. But really, it was just bonkers for the sake of being bonkers.
Yeah, because, like, within the film, we see two things from her own life. We see her cat, who kind of hates her. It's like, oh, this woman again. And then we see her tutor, Dinah, I think is her name.
Who also hates her.
And I think, like, the best thing you could do is, like, Dinah as the approximation for the queen. Some tyrannical person just nonchalantly ruling over her. But, yeah, that's about the best you can do.
Yeah, that's a very tenuous link, though, because I didn't get that.
And then there's the cat. Is her cat the Cheshire cat? What's the name of her cat again? I don't even remember.
Was the cat Dinah?
No, Dinah was the tutor, definitely. Oh no, Dinah might have been the cat. God damn it! Did the tutor have a name?
The tutor, the teacher.
Well,
was it Alice's mother? We don't know.
I certainly paid attention to this, but yes, specificity to your weirdness is my point.
Many sequences and characters from the book were cut out for pacing reasons, including the famous Jabberwock, along with the song Beware of the Jabberwock.
You say that, but then they also included a 6-minute tangent on the frickin' whatchamacallits. So,
the Walrus and the Carpenter?
Yeah, they put in the oysters for 6 minutes, but we're like, oh, we gotta trim the rest for time.
Actually, they replaced the Jabberwock with the Walrus and the Carpenter scene. Oddly, though, they kept the Jabberwocky poem and gave it to the Cheshire Cat, because Disney was fond of the poem and wanted to keep it in the film, so he gave it to another character.
Just put it in the film then. Just take the oysters out. The oysters serve the least purpose in this film.
What I was going to say, the oyster segment felt really out of place, like an abandoned short from the package era.
Yeah, they're like, okay, alright, we can't make Alice in Wonderland, so we're going to take one of the poems and put it in Make Mine Music. But then they didn't put it in Make Mine Music. It's like, alright, we still have this. What are we going to do with it? Oh wait, we're finally making Alice in Wonderland. Let's just throw it in there for 6 minutes. Add another 6 minutes to the runtime.
It's also a very troubling poem. It's basically a middle-aged walrus who lures oyster babies away from their mother in a Pied Piper type of scenario.
I wonder what came first. The oysters or the Pied Piper come first?
I don't know. And then he ate them all in a mass genocide.
Yeah. And the poor mother is like, don't go with him. And then they all go with him. So, Pied Piper... What year was Pied Piper published? I think that came ages before.
Oh man, that's like a really old story. So yeah. I'm guessing that would come sooner.
1592 painting. So yeah, it goes ways back. So yeah, C.S. Lewis ripped them off. No, the other one, Lewis Carroll. So many Lewises.
Too many Lewises at that time. Another deleted scene in the Two Leaky Woods would have seen Alice consulting with the White Knight, who was meant to be somewhat of a caricature of Walt Disney. Although Disney liked the scene, he felt that it was better if Alice learned her lesson by herself, hence the song Very Good Advice. One thing I have in my notes here, Gar. Alice eats and drinks everything in this world without even questioning it. So it says, the bottle says drink me famously, and the cookies say eat me, and she just eats them.
And like, she's, the worst thing is like, she understands that eating things makes her bigger. And then she walks into that house, she sees something that says eat me, and she's like, don't mind if I do!
Pops it right in her mouth. Yeah.
And then she gets gigantic and she's like, how could I have foreseen this? Alice, no, there's not a lot going on there at Alice. And this is her world. She should understand her world.
This was exactly it. She doesn't seem to exert much control over her world that is of her own creation. She talks about wanting to live in opposite land at the beginning. She even sings about it. It's one of the songs. And then she
even sings about it. It's like, you sing about it.
It's her I Want song. And then she questions everything. Surely she should know the rules, as you said.
Yes. But I suppose in a world without rules, how do you understand the rules? That obviously that is somewhat the moral of the film.
Moral, like maybe
there is something to order.
There's something to
chaos is not great.
And be careful what you wish for in some ways, I guess.
And queens are vindictive, and power will corrupt. That's also, of course, queens will just chop off heads nonchalantly
if their power is left unchecked.
Alice is completely oblivious to her own world.
Yeah, and she's like from the start, like at least you could have seen her maybe enjoying it or reveling in it for a while, but it's
all torment and torture.
Straight away, she's like, nope, I don't like it.
And then she cries. She only cries once though. I didn't believe her crying. And then
salty crocodile tears as it goes.
But then she gets trapped in the bottle and she's flowing down a river and she stops crying, and that's objectively more terrifying. She should have been crying then.
We meet Tweedledum and Tweedledee quite early. I found them extremely annoying.
I can only imagine what they're like with Matt Lucas playing both of them.
Yeah, they try to block Alice from leaving and want her to sit there and listen to their recitation of poems. I got really rapey vibes off Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Just trapping her.
Yeah. There's one shot where like Alice was in the background and they're in the foreground with their backs to the camera, but they're blocking her exit. And I don't know. Give me chills for some reason.
They just want to tell their stories, Ken.
It starts with the stories, Ken.
It never ends.
Bread and butterflies, good pun. We see the bread and butterflies in a segment of talking flowers who form a choir.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are sexy. Stupid sexy flowers.
You're so attracted to everything in this film. This is a problem.
Everything has a face and lips.
It's the lips. You're so
lips.
horny for lips.
God damn it.
God.
I thought this was a fun segment. The judgmental flowers, who are somewhat racist.
They're super racist. Those flowers are like, you're a weed. We don't want weeds here. And then they kick her out. Yeah, racist flowers. Who would have thought it?
Obviously, in flower society, it's rooted in... Get it, Gar? Rooted.
All right.
It's rooted in social hierarchy. Gar, that was a real good joke. You know,
very rooted. That's not a good joke. That's like 6 out of 10 wordplay.
Garrett, that's as good as I can do today, and I'd appreciate your support.
You know the oyster scene, Ken?
Yes.
Is that like the original Family Guy cutaway gag?
and in fairness, like Family Guy, it went on for way too long.
Yeah, there you go. That's the Alice in Wonderland was clearly the inspiration for Family Guy. Oh, by the way, happy on birthday.
Happy on birthday to you as well, Gar.
And happy on birthday to all our listeners, unless it is in fact your birthday, in which happy birthday.
It was my actual birthday recently, so it wasn't my own birthday that day. We move on then later to the caterpillar segment. This is another example of Disney endorsing smoking.
Well, it's weird. Like, I would have taken it because it says tobacco use. I'm like, this caterpillar is getting high. Like that. This isn't tobacco. These are drugs.
He's smoking a shisha pipe.
Yeah, come on.
It's basically a bong.
Yeah, it's like, the tobacco use in this film. It's like, Disney. Yeah.
The caterpillar has anger issues, which I find pretty funny.
Yeah, it does. It's clearly an aggressive high. Is there types of high? I don't know.
Like, we also have people that they always say, like, shouldn't drink or take drugs because it doesn't suit them. He's maybe one of those guys. He goes to a party, he's like, oh man, caterpillar's here. He's going to go nuts if we give him some weed.
But also he turns into a butterfly.
He does. And
appears later in the film then, again as the caterpillar.
Maybe he can go back and forth. This is Wonderland, there's no rules.
That's true. But the continuity can. The continuity!
To be honest, the characters speaking nonsense and double speak for me wears a bit thin. They're all a bit samey after a while.
You do not like these nonsense literatures?
No, I enjoyed it to an extent, but with each passing segment, they all just seemed a bit same.
But like the film is utterly plotless. Like, it's literally Alice falls down a hole and then runs through a series of... Like, she's chasing... Like, the plot of this film is Alice chases rabbit. Like, that is... The explanation of the story...
A literal rabbit hole.
Yes, in 3 words. Alice chases rabbit is the entire story of this film. And like at one stage, after everything that happens to her, and she does, in fairness, eventually give up and go home, or try to go home. But you're like, why are you still chasing this rabbit? After all that has happened to you around you, you're still like, oh, the rabbit is here. I must follow the rabbit. Though in fairness, the rabbit does seem the one sensible character in the world, so maybe that is why she is chasing him.
Yeah, the rabbit's kind of strange is that he seems sensible, but he also gives into the manic nature of the world. So he's like very suggestible. So he's like, "This isn't a good idea." It's like, "Yes, it is." Like, "Yes, it is."
Yeah, burning down his house.
We move on then, Gar, to probably the most famous sequence in the film, the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, which gave me anxiety.
Why?
It just reminds me of one of those dreams. Do you ever get those dreams where you're trying to go somewhere and you can't get there? You just never get to your destination, and the anxiety of like, I need to get here, and the dream just prevents you from getting there?
No.
You've never had one of
Which
those
means
dreams?
I have fulfillment and contentment in my life, whereas you are desperately trying to reach somewhere you can't possibly go.
It's
dream analysis.
It's the millennial curse. I'm in my 30s, so, that describes me pretty well. So I'm going to go cry now instead of finishing the podcast.
Woo! Like you do every week when we're done, after I bully you for 45 minutes.
Relentlessly. Gary, you said there that Alice eventually has enough with the white rabbit and pursuing him, tries to go home, and then she gets lost. And then she laments on her foolish and childish ways. And it seems to kind of be indicating that the moral of the story is that Alice learns the value and comfort of unquestioned conformity, and she sings the song Take Your Own Advice. So it kind of says, don't be contrary for the sake of it, don't step out of line, be normal.
Very mathematician's take.
Show patience. And one thing that really struck me, and it's much like Pinocchio, it really mirrors traditional child-rearing values at the time. Children should be seen and not heard, and it feels like it doesn't gel with Carol's intended message. Like, I don't think that was a plot point.
Keep all that in your dreams is basically what it is. Like, keep that in your head. Don't bring that into the real world.
Is that in the original book?
I don't remember. I have read it. I remember literally nothing about it.
The reason I think that is because Disney always shoehorns that kind of message in stories involving children. And if you look at it conversely, today the message would be to embrace your freak flag, and that's what makes you unique. But back in the 50s was like, shut up, kid.
Well, I wouldn't say the message of this film is total conformity. I think the message of this film, the idea of the film coming out, is just like, maybe rules and structure isn't so bad.
Yeah. You should question it from time to time. It isn't always. And, silliness and fun always has its place, but there has to be rules to govern that fun, I guess, is what it's saying.
I'm sorry, you've shaved your beard and it's different, and now my eyes have gotten caught in your beard, and it's...
Is it good different? Or
it's
is that different?
Mesmerizing. I can't look away. And it's revenge, because during my beard phase, you would never look at me in the eyes. I was only a beard to you then.
Except I don't get self-conscious when you look at my beard, because I know it's awesome. It's a fade, and it's really good. It's really tidy and neat.
All right.
So I got a haircut this week. That's my main story.
Yes, conformity. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. There you go.
Pretty much.
Is probably a good lesson to take.
Yeah. I mean, there's times when you should question the norm, but also you shouldn't just try and tear down a system for the sake of it.
Well, you see a lot of people these days thinking they're like galaxy brain thinkers, being like, it's the mask people. It's like, I won't conform and wear a mask. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you? Stop it. The idea is we're trying to stop spreading a pandemic. It's not some conspiracy theory. It's not some kind of weird thing against you personally. We're trying to stop the spread of a disease. Can you get out of your own head for once and stop pretending like you and you alone see the world from the correct perspective? And just wear a mask to be considered for other people. So in those instances, people are like, I'm not conforming. And then I'm like, you're stupid.
And there's those type of people as well who feel like they need to be contrary for the sake of it. At least it feels that way. And, it feels like whatever you ask them to do, they do the opposite just because they don't want to go with the flow. And there's going with the flow and going with like being a sheeple, as they like to say. But there's also like the greater good, and those two things aren't mutually exclusive. Well,
you see, the problem is like there's a mostly right wing, probably not exclusively right wing, but a branch of the right wing conspiracy theorist media whose bread and butter, whose entire income comes from spinning quote unquote alternative narratives, spinning ideas that are contrary to them. The mainstream media don't want you to know this, and so inherently, for those people to continue to make money, they have to peddle things that are contrary to what like the media is presenting. So they'll always lean towards shite like the worst kind of quote unquote non-conformity, where they're like, oh, don't wear masks, pandemic is fake, that kind of nonsense. And they'll always veer toward that stuff because that's inherently that's where their like that's where their money is, frankly. And the worst thing is people believe them. So these people whose incentive solely is to mislead you because they want you to think that they and they alone tell the truth and everybody else is lying. But so in order for them to do that, they have to lie about pretty much everything, but then people believe them and they're misled about pretty much everything. It's very malicious, it's very bad, and sometimes, as I said, conformity, not so bad. Sometimes bad.
Conformity where it intersects with, as I said, the greater good. So like there's a general agreement to be in a society that you have to agree with a certain set of principles. So
I'm going to coin a new word, Ken.
Go ahead, Gar.
Informity.
Whoa.
Which is...
That's really good.
Informed conformity. There we go.
Yeah, like to be in a society, there's no... Like, that's the one myth, and that's the one thing that really sank the Brits and the Americans, because they're both the same, basically. And Australians to a certain extent.
The guy is just... Going full racist.
No,
all of these people, horrible people.
What I'm saying is the Australians did well with coronavirus, but I don't think they really did lock down that well the first time, and now they're suffering the consequences. But the point is,
you hate the Australians.
No, I don't care. The point is,
he's getting salty. He's getting bad.
The point is that there's this illusion of pure 100% freedom, which doesn't exist in a society. A society is a contract, and that's why people in the Black Lives Matter movement are so annoyed and upset, because the contract keeps getting broken on them, and that seems to be okay, or people try to brush it under the carpet, where if the contract gets broken for certain sections of society, it's not fair, and laws and rules are upheld and there's consequences. So like it comes down to hypocrisy and individualism, because people want freedom but they're not willing
to accept responsibility.
Exactly. But like, we're getting kind of sidetracked here, Gar.
No, these are the lessons we should talk about coming out of that. This is the kind of conversations Alice in Wonderland should inspire.
Do you think he was commenting on society at the time?
Maybe. Who knows?
You read the book, Gar, not me.
I did, in theory.
A few more notes here, Gar, on the story. The croquet sequence, where the mallets and balls are animals, they cheat to make sure that the queen wins and sabotage Alice. I thought that was a lot of fun.
They're literally diving over the balls. It's a very good sequence. I like the entire entire because when they do finally introduce a villain, so what I'm saying is like give me traditional narrative structure of Disney films, but when they do introduce a villain, I like that entire final act. I think it is very well animated and very well executed.
The Cheshire Cat.
Who you hate? Why do you hate the Cheshire Cat?
He's a troll, Gar. He loves to lead Alice into trouble.
Yeah, but Alice needs to be led into trouble. For Alice to learn the lesson that she needs to learn, she needs to be led to the Queen.
I guess the Queen is basically a Karen in the modern context. Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
Karen.
Ken having his boomer moment of using the word and then being like,
did I say it right?
Did I use the word right?
The Queen, she only wants to be told what she wants to hear. She doesn't like when people get things wrong, even though she doesn't set expectations in the first place. So she just lops off all their heads.
An evil authoritarian dictator who ruthlessly murders everybody who contradicts her. Sound familiar these days? Maybe not ruthlessly murders, but he would.
Well, ruthlessly pursues at the very least.
Yes, he would if he could.
He sure would. This leads to a trial scene where Alice embarrasses the Queen and goes on trial. I did not remember the trial scene. Is this in the book, Gar?
It's in Kingdom Hearts, so I'm going to say yes. Yeah.
The Queen...
As if Kingdom Hearts is based on anything other than the Disney film.
It's the authority on C.S. Lewis canon.
Wrong Lewis Ken, come on.
Oh, god damn, I did it again. Sorry. Lewis Carroll. No? Yes.
Yes, Lewis Carroll.
Yeah, got it. Okay. The Queen is a dictator, Gar. She's annoyed by due process. Mm-hmm. One thing that I noted here, the King intervenes to save Alice. It's never really explained why he does that.
The King is... there are forces of good in Wonderland.
Yeah, and maybe he's like...
just slightly undercutting and moderating the ruthless dictator.
Trying to limit her damage, and especially when she's being unreasonable. Or maybe he just fancies her, we don't know.
Yeah.
Fancies this child.
Maybe he would like her to be his queen.
One thing I noted towards the end as well, the trial descends into chaos because there's no rules and everybody's just... everything that happens turns into like a rabbit hole, for want of a better term. So it's like, oh, this is the most important thing, and they get distracted, and Alice just... and then eventually they lead themselves to... It's the Queen's unbirthday, and then they start singing the unbirthday song again, and Alice face palms. She's had enough of this nonsense. She's come to despise her own creation.
Yes, this world is too much for her.
And then in the end, Gar, it was all a dream. This kind of grated with me. Maybe it wasn't a trope at the time, but it has become a ridiculed trope for a reason.
It was all a dream.
I remember when I was in school.
What, did you think Wonderland was real?
Well, not real, but when I was younger, I thought it was real. I didn't know this was all like a dream or all in her head and her creation. I thought it was just...
Did you not see the end of the film where she's literally like, I must wake up?
Yeah, I didn't see it. So I thought it was just like a magical fantasy film. But when I was in school, getting back to my point, my teacher
Which teacher?
Jim Maddock.
Ah, there you go.
He's our English teacher who apparently played for West Ham. That was the rumour at the time. As in, like, he would get so mad if you ended an essay, like a creative essay that you were doing with, it was all a dream. He's like...
as an English teacher, how many times do you think English teachers see that? It's like, oh, this again. Because, like, realistically, the writings of people aged 13 to 18 are going to be in some way, unless you're happen to be teaching geniuses, it's probably going to be derivative of things that they consume. So, like, oh, this person wrote Godzilla, and this person...
Or else they write themselves into a corner and they don't know how to get out of it. So they're like, it was all a dream.
Yeah, so that's basically... That must be fascinating as an English teacher to be like, you could probably work out exactly what was the inspiration for each particular piece of writing from your student. Because, like, that's the way we learn how to write. We copy until we learn our own style and learn our own way. But until that happens, and for some people, it never happens. But until that happens, we just, copy other people's works and say... We don't work out why they wrote it like that. It's like, oh, that was good. So mentally, I'm going to do something like that.
That works. I'm going to steal it.
Yeah.
Moving on quickly to the music of this film, Gar, and Nicole will do more justice, as always, at the end of the show, so we don't tend to step on her toes in that sense, but just as it intersects with our enjoyment of the film, I wasn't too familiar with most of the music in the film, with the exception of the Unbirthday song, even though I have no idea where I heard it from.
My benchmark for this is we watched this film last night, and I'm like, do I have any of the songs still in my head from last night? And the answer is no. So that's usually a sign that, like, it's not terrible, but it's not particularly memorable.
In an effort to retain some of Carroll's imaginative poems, Disney commissioned top songwriters to compose songs built around the poems for use in the film. Most of the music and the score is built around these poems. No real score to speak of besides that. At least nothing that registered with me. So to
it's your point, standard score of like amplify when flowing down the river. It's nothing special.
Yeah, as you noted there, like the Unbirthday song, I know, but it's still not stuck in my head.
No, I couldn't sing it.
No, so it's not a film that you would remember for its music, more for its visuals and its characters. What are your final thoughts about this film? We'll talk a tiny bit about the legacy. We've kind of talked about a few bits already. It spawned an inexplicably successful live-action adaptation directed by Tim Burton, made over $1 billion, and inspired a far less successful sequel, Through the Looking Glass, in 2016.
Yeah. Do you think that's one of those things where they put like Alice? They probably did eventually, but remember when the Birds of Prey came out and they're like, it wasn't a flop, but it didn't do as well as they hoped. So then they re-released it as Harley Quinn Birds of Prey because they're like, we put the recognizable character in the name. Do you think something? And the Hunger Games did the same thing where they really like the subsequent books are not called The Hunger Games, but all the films are like The Hunger Games Mockingjay. So do you think they should if they just call it Alice in Wonderland 2, it probably would have done better. It probably is. It probably has a subtitle. That's probably what it's called. But you gotta make the franchise clear, or else people won't go see the film. God, it's a depressing world.
Yeah, and it had Sacha Baron Cohen in it, so maybe that's what put people off.
So yeah, my final thoughts on this film. I don't particularly like it. I don't think it's a particularly good piece of film. But is it an interesting piece of film? Yes. As illustrated, we just spent 45 minutes talking about it. So like there's a lot to talk. It's interesting to talk about. It's interesting to look at. Was it particularly interesting or enjoyable to watch? Nah. I think it's pretty good. It's all right. It's all right.
I thought the writing is witty and sharp, led by Carroll's original words. Some of my favourite lines, Gar. Maybe not from the book, but they're in the film. I'm here, but I should be there. That's the White Rabbit.
That's classic Ken's dreams of not being able to get somewhere.
Gar, you want me to scream right now? And I'm not all there myself, which is an invisibility pun by the Cheshire Cat.
Also, a song about Ken.
Gar.
I'm not all there right now.
Well, neither are you, so there. The animation was innovative and fun. Some of the visual effects were very pleasing, like the trippy effects, or when the shisha smoking, that's hard to say, smoking caterpillar mixed all the images with the smoke, and the Cheshire Cat disappearing and reappearing. Or
I quite like the Cheshire Cat's animation. And the way his face would linger and all that stuff. Or
in the Mad Hatter sequence when they're like doing things like cutting a cup of tea in half and then filling it, and then it just fills up and you can see the inside. Some really interesting stuff there. I found the plot a bit disjointed. It doesn't,
as I said, 3 words. Alice Falls Rabbit.
It felt like a series of shorts with Alice as a spectator or a participant rather than a whole narrative.
Well, she creates the entire world, Ken. What more do you want? This is entirely happening in her head. How can she be any more involved?
What I mean is, like, this film felt like if you took out Alice and you said this is a Make Mine music too, I would have believed you. Yeah, so again,
Alice's Adventures in Make Mine music.
I didn't dislike it.
I don't want to like an entire spin-off series of Alice just walking through films, just reacting to them.
Can I pitch it at Disney?
All right, we open on Hercules. He's cast down from the mountain. Alice walks around. It's like, who are you? Why do you have lightning? Who is this child?
How did I get to ancient Greece?
Yes, all that fun stuff. Put her in all of these. Lilo and Stitch. The alien crashes to Earth. It's like, is this a dog? What does Ohana mean?
It means family, girl.
Family? I don't have one of those.
She does. She's not an orphan.
How do you know?
Well, I don't know.
Do they ever establish that she has parents?
Well, they open...
You don't know who the tutor is. The tutor could be anybody. It could be your friend.
Well, they open on a stately homes. I imagine she's quite wealthy.
Maybe they're just sitting in the garden. Maybe they're squatters.
Karen.
I'm not filling in the entire Alice universe.
I'd say, to sum up, if the listeners asked us, should I watch it? I'd say, yeah, give it a watch. Would I watch it again? No.
We haven't disagreed in a film yet, Ken.
Yeah.
We need some conflict on this podcast. Well, more conflict than me bullying you. Yeah. Some conflict about opinions, about takes.
Well, Gar, we've got 45 films to go. So far. So I'm sure there might be one where we don't reach a consensus.
Consensus. See what did there, puns.
You made fun of my joke earlier.
That was much better.
As bad, if not worse.
You see, the worse the pun is, the better the pun is. So that's the way it works. Consensus.
I'm going to close the show now.
Consensus.
It's terrible.
We come to the conclusion.
Conclusion.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
You didn't say it right.
You just dadded me. Our father has a wonderful habit of anytime he's in a social gathering, he will repeat somebody else's joke as if they did not say it and it was his. And Ken just adopted his own father's tradition.
Well, we all become our fathers in the end, Gar, and sometimes our mothers. Or we marry our mothers, that's what they say, isn't it? Anyway, Gar.
You just call him Ken.
Yeah.
You don't even know what's going on. Take us home, Ken.
Okay, Mad Hatters, that's nearly it for the show this week. Our resident musical expert Nicole is coming up in just a few moments with a song from the movie. It's always a highlight, so be sure to stick around for that after the outro. You can find new episodes of Magic by Design every Monday, where all magical podcasts are downloaded. Check out our website at magicbydesign.buzzsprout.com to find a full list of podcast providers. Magic by Design is on all your favourite social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/magicbydesignpod, on Twitter at Magic Design Pod, and on the Insta at Magic by Design Pod. If you're a fan of the show and want to help us out, please do consider giving us a positive review on your podcast platform of choice, share the podcast on your socials, or simply recommend the show to a fellow Disney lover. As we mentioned, today is our unbirthdays, and all we want is your help to see our podcast grow, like it's eating one of those mysterious cookies in Wonderland.
Oh yeah, that would work. Do we have any cookies?
No, we have cookies, but we don't have magic cookies.
Oh, continuity problems. Drinking makes her small, right?
Yes.
But then she eats a carrot.
The podcast is over.
The carrot also makes her small. It's like, how does that work? There has to be some logic to this world, Ken. It all can't be random.
We've established it is random. There's no logic to it. We'll be back next week at the same time, same place, with Disney's 14th animated feature, Peter Pan. But until then, stay safe and remember, if you ever randomly find a bottle that says drink me or cookies that say eat me, you should definitely just do what they say without a second thought. What's the worst that could happen? Now then, we're about to enter our own Wonderland now, because Nicole is here to sing us out with In a World of My Own from Alice in Wonderland, as well as providing her trademark fun facts about the music of the film. Take it away, Nicole.
Hello, Disney lovers. It's your musical correspondent, Nicole. Once again, I'm live from my bedroom. This week, we're delving into Alice in Wonderland. For this film, Disney wanted to preserve Carol's imaginative poems. Frank Churchill was assigned to composing music for the film in 1939. But none of his songs were used. Disney then decided to use recent recruits, Mac David, Al Hoffman, and Jerry Livingston, who worked on Cinderella. But the only song of theirs that made it to the film was the unbirthday song. Sammy Fain, a popular music composer, heard Disney wanted him to compose for the film, and he suggested he collaborate with lyricist Bob Hillard. They composed 10 of the songs for the movie. The Cheshire Cat song, "'Twas Brilling," was composed by Don Ray and Jean DePaul. Disney composer Oliver Wallace and writer Ted Sears also contributed 3 songs to the final soundtrack. A total of 12 songs were composed but not used in the final soundtrack. Catherine Beaumont, who voices Alice, was originally from London. She came to LA, contracted with MGM, but nothing came of it apart from minor roles. Disney saw her in On an Island with You and decided she was the Alice he was looking for. This week, I'm taking a look at In a World of My Own, which we hear very early on in the movie. I apologise in advance for my English accent, but I hope you still enjoy. Cats and rabbits would reside in fancy little houses and be dressed in shoes and hats and trousers. In a world of my own, all the flowers would have very extra special powers. They would sit and talk to me for hours when I'm lonely in a world of my own. There'd be new birds, lots of nice and friendly howdy-do birds. Everyone would have a dozen bluebirds within that world of my own. I could listen to a babbling brook and hear a song that I could understand. I'd keep wishing it could be that way, because my world would be a